I am David Lax, grandson of Henrietta Lax, the woman with the immortal cells, son of David Sonny Lax. What did I learn about Henrietta Lax growing up? Well, basically, I honestly did not know much about Henrietta as a child. I first learned about her when my sister was doing a book report in high school. She had wrote a book report about these remarkable cells that had went up in space and helped cure polio. And that's all we knew about them. Nobody in the family really talked about Henrietta. Beyond that, we thought, we always contributed to that. Who was Henrietta beyond the medical story? Henrietta was a woman, a mother, a wife, a person who took care of people. We always contributed the sales was sales that took care of the world because they kind of modeled and emulated Henrietta. And from what we learned when Aunt Dale and Rebecca went on the journey to write this book of how Henrietta was a person who took care of the people in her community. When people got sick, she would come care for them, help them, let them stay over house. When people came out of town, she would open her house up to them and let people stay. And that she loved to sing and dance and wear red fingernails. So we always said Henrietta was a woman who took care of people. How would I explain the sales? Well, in my many travels, in the family's member travel, since the book came out, we had the ability to go speak on Henrietta, the sales, and the book. And in our journeys, we learned the unique natures of the healer cells. Basically, the cells are cancer cells, but what made them so resilient and so almost immortal is there's a gene called the MYC gene that intersected with her cell and went into like a unique area of a cell. Like the HPV virus intersected with the MYC genes in her cell, which caused the cell to become cancerous and the rapid growth of it. But it also made it unique that it almost, like I said, given under the right circumstances and how scientists, feed and nurture the cells, that they keep growing indefinitely. So now why they did this, and I always tell people it's probably like, I guess there's something God's plan. At the time they discovered the cells, polio was a disease that was ravaging the country then. What issues still exist with Henrietta Lax? Consent and recognition. Well, I would say both issues still exist. Because though you can consent, back then when they removed the tumor from Henrietta Lax, that became the more cells known as the healer cells, Henrietta didn't consent. Had no knowledge of it. Like I said, she died never knowing nothing about her cells. And cells, like I said, the cells, after a couple of weeks, did what no upper cells would do. They survived. Every upper cell died. So right then and there, doctors knew those cells were special. But they never told Henrietta about these cells. She never consented to the procedure. She never consented to taking. She never consented to anything. Henrietta's legacy. What does Henrietta's legacy mean at the end of the day? We want people to Henrietta's legacy for her cells is etched in stone. They know that the cell is the gold standard. If you want to do anything in medical research, you can go to the healer cells first. But now we want the people to know who Henrietta Lax was. That she was a woman. She was a mother. She was a wife. She was a caring people who took care of people in her neighborhood, took people who came in her orbit. And now she has these cells that's a part of her that are taking care of the world. So we just want people to know that she was a caring person, and that caringness, I think, transcended to her cells, because the cells are now helping people around the world. Well, what has changed, like I said, we now have consent forms, which we didn't have when Henrietta's alive. You now have to ask for a sample. When back then they just took the sample of Henrietta's, and like I said, she never knew, she never consented to it. Yeah, so I think consent and compassion and communication. I think the big thing is communication throughout the whole story. Henrietta was a lack of communication, a lack of consideration. They didn't consider her. They didn't consider the family when they was doing what they're doing. When they, like I said, extracted the cell, continued to use them for decades, and the family knew nothing about it. And when we did find about it, it wasn't forthcoming and telling us the truth about what had happened.